as both our vice-chancellors already announced, these are very special honorary doctorates because they are awarded by two universities, the two universities that celebrate the values of free speech and free inquiry. But what's even more special, the degree within the VUB is awarded by two faculties, a faculty of social sciences, and I'm the dean of this faculty, but also the faculty of arts and philosophy. And we decided that we would only give one laudatio speech. I hope you will appreciate that. And it will be Marc, my good colleague Marc, that will give the laudatio for Rudi Vranckx.
Thank you. The question as to why Rudi Vranckx deserves this honorary doctorate from our universities, universities which are driven by humanistic values and ideas, is a question that I would rather let him answer himself. To that end, here are some quotes from his latest book, Mijn kleine oorlog, My Little War, about his experiences at the front, spread over 30 years of professional activity. The first quote: "Journalism is only a means to an end, a just and honest coexistence without violence or hatred." End of quote. And then there's always this drive, next quote: "It gives me the chance to get people in the West out of the lethargy for a while." End of quote. After the murder of Yitzhak Rabin in 1995, Rudi wrote in his diary, "I realize that journalism is more than just a cool description of facts with cause and effect. Heart and head will now always be connected." End of quote. After a horrible story, one of many, in the West Bank, he observes, I quote, and there's always this hope, "Yet it will one day be different." And why? Because there is no other way. End of quote. Or he lets others have their say. He quotes Dr. Mukwege, the Nobel Peace Prize winner in 2018. I quote Mukwege in this case, "I'm angry and disappointed. I studied in Europe and you made me dream of a different world. How can you turn your heads away from what is happening here? I'm deeply disappointed. I could never have imagined that a civilized world like yours could just stand by and watch. No one can say he doesn't know, not after all these years. This silence, why?" End of quotation. And this testimony is followed a few pages further on by two remarks by Rudi Vranckx himself. I quote, "In our attempts to draw boundaries, let's not forget to guard our moral boundaries." End of quotation. And when seeing body bags once again, next quote, "That's the least we can do, give them a human face again." End of quote. I'm quoting these fragments because it is your voice, Mr. Vranckx, that cannot speak in front of the camera in this way. It is the person behind the journalist, the person we do not see on television. After all, it is usually you who give people a voice that is not often heard or is heard far too little. The combination of these quotes show us a journalist who does not allow his thinking to be submitted, nor that of others, and who refuses to do so for reasons that radiate a deep human concern for human beings and the world, and for the great diversity in the way people deal with their worlds. I could not think of a better answer myself than to let Mr. Vranckx speak for himself. The reading of your book, Mr. Vranckx, has explicitly shown me the ethical and philosophical drive that guides you. may I express my great admiration and respect as a philosopher myself and as an ethicist who is inspired in his academic work by people like you who embody all these ethical, philosophical and humanistic considerations in their professional practices. And then a final remark. The title of this book, My Little War, Mijn Kleine Oorlog, is a little war for journalistic freedom, the theme which has brought us together here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And while Rudi Vranckx, you are on your way to the stage, which might take a while, we will invite next to the proximity also our rectors to come and join us. Please come in the middle of the stage. Now is not the time to be shy. Hello. Our rectors. Dancing on stage. And Rudi Vranckx, please give him a tremendous applause. And our rectors will hand you
So it's a diploma that honors Rudi Vranckx by both our universities with the signatures underneath, so it's not fake. That's the medal, but of course you always receive two things because you are a Doctor Honoris Causa of both universities.
So there is also a medal and a diploma that I can put in the same box. Thanks to the VUB. Voilà.
So that's the most important. Whenever we see Rudi again on the screen, he will be wearing the gown and everything that stands for the values the three of us stand for. So thank you, Rudi, and congratulations.
Give a big burst of applause for Rudi Vranckx. We're going to listen to our Doctor Honoris Causa.
This is a unique moment, so I had to think very carefully what I was going to say for my 15 minutes of fame. Madam Vice-Chancellor, she already left. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice-Chancellor. That's how we call the rectors of the universities. Thank you very much. I'm very humbled by this honor because the VUB and the ULB and universities are institutions that prepare young people for the future. I'm very thankful for that. I also thank and it's from the deepest of my heart, the public broadcaster I work for, because they created the environment in which I could do this job for 30 years. And as well, the people, the small team of collaborators who made it possible that I'm standing here right now, that I survived all these wars. But let me take you to another place, a nicer place. I was in Palermo 1 month ago, you know, in Sicily. And it was a sunny day on the theater square there. And suddenly, there was that touch of magic. A young, black, wiry man, he takes his guitar and starts playing. He whistles nostalgically and starts singing. And to my surprise, in Italian. Hesitant at first, but then with great vigor. And I will say it in Italian. I will not chant, be sure. Non siamo pesci. We are not fish in the sea, like that little boy in the water. Everyone on that square stops and listens. Chris, because that was his name, he becomes someone with a voice and a story and a face and a life. He's from Nigeria, like so many others. And like his fellow countrymen, he came to Europe in a little rowing boat. And on his way, en route, he experienced all sorts of atrocities. Famine, he saw people die, he was tortured. A small child fell overboard this little boat and drowned before his eyes. He turned his experiences into songs. Non siamo pesci, siamo umani. We are no fish, we are humans. It is a statement that touched my soul. Who can claim that protest music, for one thing, is dead? Just like journalism is dead, or even the truth is supposed to be dead. The young men arrived on Lampedusa, and immediately the name of Dr. Pietro Bartolo, who stood here a few years ago, and he received the same title in the name of the people of Lampedusa. And this teaches me one big lesson. Kindness is more important than hatred. We live in a world where life expectancy is getting longer. People get more opportunities and thus could be happier. But at the same time, we live also in a world where refugees and migrants arrive every 2 seconds. Tens of millions across the world, more than ever since the World War. In this new world, I see ghosts of the past reappearing. Fear and hatred towards others. It is like a wheel that keeps on turning and turning through history, only to reach the same point. Some refer to the 30s, but history is, to my experience, not repeating itself. This is about the mechanism of exclusion, human behavior in times of fear and hatred. And that human behavior remains the same. We live in a polarized world, us against them. The others are back. They dominate every debate, every election. The plight of war refugees is less important than our discomfort. They are fortune seekers. Dismissively, these words reverberate in tweets. Admittedly, some of them are fortune seekers. Running from war also, drought due to the climate, away from poverty. But are we allowed, and is it not a responsibility to make a distinction, identifying the issues and trying to find a humane solution? If you help nowadays a drowning person, do you automatically become an accomplice to a human trafficker? And those who want to respect international law, are they seen as judges now, unfamiliar with the ways of the world? Journalists are intimidated in parts of the world. Every nuance disappears. Sowing fear of the others has become the best-selling product in the 21st century political supermarket. Facts and solutions are on sale. As an historian and a war correspondent, I know that every war is fought with 2 weapons: hatred and fear. We are threatened, surrounded, flooded. The others are at fault. They become lesser humans, even inhuman. And finally, we saw and we see the same old mechanism. Without hate and fear, there will be no war. Those who disseminate fear and sow hatred create a hotbed for war crimes of the future. Islam hate preachers, alt-right prophets of doom, anti-Semitic conspiracy theorists, they are drunk from the same well. You find them everywhere on the internet. Truth is the first victim of war. This is the motto of many of my profession of the war correspondent, but to me it is only one aspect of the reality. Because also human rights, the rights of all humans, are buried. It is easy for me to report, and it was easy 20 years ago to report on a war if you are not involved yourself, if it's far away, far from our bed. But what if the threat comes closer? We saw the attempts, we saw what happened in Paris and in Brussels. Over the last 2 decades, boundaries have shifted. Admittedly, this has been in the making for a while. Chemical weapons, the horrors of IS, Daesh, through the internet, war propaganda in the form of fake news, blind terror in our own country, Islamophobia. The threats and challenges are great. and such also is the seduction for the easy solution. This would not only challenge international humanitarian law, but also our own rule of law in Western democracies. Choosing the path of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth leads to dehumanization. Is the ghost of the past haunting us yet again, I wonder? Some believe pushing human rights is not without danger. Nie wieder was the motto of those who helped to create peace, resulting in the rule of law in Europe. We and the older generations may be tired of fighting. New generations, also politicians, who have no idea of what war really entails, are shouting the loudest. But if you feed the beast with only testosterone-filled tweets, you will never lure it back into its cage. History teaches us one lesson. Populism, whether right or left, never ends well. These are simple remedies for complex issues. What gives me the right to speak about this on this occasion? 30 years of being a war correspondent is engraved in my soul. I saw how it all started, how it grew, and the type of monster it turned out to be. Rwanda, Congo, Somalia, Iraq, Syria, Gaza, I can continue, Afghanistan, Yemen, it's a long list. And in this time, in this period of my time, 2,600 colleagues, as they said, died in it. Conflict brings out the best and the worst in people. Hindsight is easy afterwards to judge and to say who was wrong and right. But what is the right choice in the thick of things, or in the world right now when you're standing in the middle of it? What does our moral compass tell us now? Every word and every conversation have consequences. It was a citation of the French philosopher Sartre, and he concluded, but so does silence. We have a choice. Therefore, not speaking up is not an option. And I hope the younger generation will fight for their voice and their future. So what is our role then? An old Dutch saying goes that although lies can run, the truth will catch up soon enough. In other words, a lie will always come back to haunt you. But is this really true in these times? When I started out in journalism, I truly believed in the power of the word. If we show reality, address problems, unmask lies and abuses, honorable leaders would make the world a better place. After all, I grew up listening to stories about Watergate, how President Nixon had to retire as brave journalist and an anti-war organization uncovered irregularities leading to the end of the Vietnam War. But so where do we start now? The man running the White House is not necessarily associated with the concept of integrity. Truth, lies, and deception are interchangeable concepts. We have all become fake news. And in Syria, the Vietnam of my generation, dictator Assad proves every day that violence and war pays. Dictators in the Middle East, and even closer to home, we have the so-called illiberal Democrats. Which freedoms are at stake? In Salvini's Italy? In Orban's Hungary? What is at stake? Truth against power. That's the motto of the day. Is that the key? We should be wary of thinking that there is only the one and only truth. I'm hesitating about this. It is precious and sometimes extremely good, so we should strive towards truth and cherish it. However, we are living in a world where truth is increasingly becoming only one option of reality. Every day, I see war propaganda and dehumanization of others on social media and in every debate. Spreading doubt and lies, these are the same techniques with always the same intentions. Ultimately, and this is my deepest fear, really, the search for truth is discredited because we are humans. I make mistakes, you make mistakes, but just let us admit our mistakes. But if you discredit our search for truth, then there is nothing left. There is no profession left. Journalism and science are both fighting to be understood and finding the truth. When I look at the fate of scientists today, and I was wondering, because this is from a university, when they are discussing climate issues or any other relevant theme today, I can't but think of Galileo. Before the Enlightenment and rational thinking, people were prosecuted by the Inquisition or by the Pope. In the world today, Galileo would have been condemned by an army of trolls using algorithms of the social media. What role should politics and media play then? Systematically discrediting others make politicians, and the rest of us too, equally responsible for creating a world where power replaces truth, where truth has no role. In his latest book, Bob Woodward, the one who brought down President Nixon, he interviewed Donald Trump, and he asked him, what is real power? Trump answered, real power is fear. Some leaders know this all too well. We have this also in Europe sometimes. They play with a cocktail of nationalism and religion. Islamic extremists and alt-right are mirror images of each other. Both need the other and feed the other. Social media such as Twitter and Facebook are perfect and direct megaphones. Name-calling is their business. To whitewash the issue, we sometimes call it, oh, it's just only a cultural war. But in fact, it is more. It is a fight for power. And what is the aim? A better world? Both journalism and science have a goal. But this is not power. The only power which I strived for all these 30 years is freedom. Freedom to investigate, freedom to understand, and freedom to report. I called this my own small war. This distinction is a reward for years past. I thank you very much for it. But at the same time, it is also an incentive to continue with vigor and together, because I am now an aging war correspondent, as they call it, to continue together with a new, young generation of journalists with a heart here and an open and critical mind here. Thank you very much.